I would like you to welcome to the next session, Fintech and Regulation in Africa. I'm delighted to welcome on stage Awelani Rahulani, Head of Fintech, the Fintech Department at Financial Sector Conduct Authority, and our moderator, Gareth Cliff, the founder of Cliff Central. Let's give them a warm welcome.
Thank you. Right. Awelani is, of course, the head of the Department of Fintech at the FSCA, which means essentially you're the government of this whole operation. So obviously a lot of questions that come to mind immediately. We'll give you an opportunity to ask your question in just a second or two. Thank you very much for having us here. Awelani, it's good to see you. Let's start off with the global situation. How have financial regulators responded to growth in fintech, and how quickly have they reacted to these things? Because it's constantly changing. How do you see things globally, and then how do you see things locally?
Thank you very much, Gareth. I think this is an excellent question, which need a lot of unpacking from my side, and I'll do my best to try and unpack it. So globally, when you look at how regulators have been responding to developments around fintechs, I can sum up into 4 approaches. The first approach is some regulators decided to do what I can call a wait-and-see approach. A wait-and-see approach means they stay at arm's length and let the market develop as it is. While they are at arm's length, it doesn't mean that they are not doing anything. They are studying the markets, they are understanding the markets. Once they feel that they are better capacitated to act, or they understand better, then that's when they decided to act. A typical example of this kind of situation is how most jurisdictions actually reacted to the crypto assets markets development. Before you heard that they banned it or they decided to regulate it, most of them, they were just observing at a distance. And what you find them doing is that they just issue warning consumers. There are things called crypto. Be careful. These are the risks. These are the benefits. Another typical example of a wait-and-see approach is actually what actually happened in China when there was a emergence of mobile payments, your WeChat and all of that. The government didn't immediately come up with regulations or stipulations. They waited, understand, and then they started to intervene. That's the first approach. The second approach has always been, let's test. We test and see, whereby you find that regulators, they will allow a certain fintech players to operate in the market under certain exemptions and also under supervision. A typical example is how mobile money sort of emerged in East Africa. In Kenya, for example, the Central Bank of Kenya, they gave M-Pesa license with certain conditions while they were busy trying to figure out what is this thing called mobile money? How can we treat it as far as our regulations are concerned?
Number 3?
Number 3, what we normally see is that some regulators started to come up with innovation facilitators, where you find them establishing innovation hubs. Within these innovation hubs, you'll find that there are sandboxes, where these innovations can be tested live within a limited number of people. So it's like an experiment, whereby while they're experimenting, they understand what are the risks, what are the benefits. Then once they understand, then they start to know what regulation or measure they can put into place to tame that. Other regulators, lastly, that's number 4, they decided to just review their current framework or come up with completely new framework to respond to this fintech development. In Mexico, for example, they come up with completely new regulations to deal with fintechs. In Europe, you've got PSD2, which was just an amendment of a current legislation to deal with the issue of open banking that was emerging, the issue of protection of personal information data. So in a nutshell, Gareth and the audience, regulators have come with various approaches informed by their domestic realities.
All right, so you were at the Reserve Bank for some years before this.
Yes.
The Reserve Bank has tried, I think, in many ways quite successfully to work with the market, to work with innovators. How do we fit into those 1, 2, 3, 4 approaches? Which one are we?
Definitely. Yeah, you are right. I worked for Reserve Bank before. I'm currently working for FSCA. So FSCA and other regulators, they actually decided to go for the third approach, which is establishing of innovation facilitators. As I'm speaking with you now, in South Africa, we've got what we call an intergovernmental fintech work group, which actually entail South African financial regulators coming together to understand the fintech landscape in South Africa. And as a result of that, they establish what you call an innovation hub, whereby within that innovation hub, we've got a sandbox where we test these innovations. We've got a guidance unit whereby, for example, Gareth, if you establish a startup and you don't understand how to navigate the regulatory landscape, you can come to us as IFWG. We are able to assist you to establish the landscape.
Okay, so obviously this can go very right, and we can have great success stories, and we have a few of those in South Africa.
Yes.
It can also go wrong sometimes. We end up with people being suspended.
Yes.
And then, taking the FSCA to court, and we've had a couple of those situations happen too. So it's a very difficult thing to find the balance for,
Correct.
right?
Correct.
You guys, you're completely aware of the fact that mistakes will be made.
Correct.
And you're aware of the fact that there are opportunities on the horizon. So it's a kind of keeping your ears open on both sides.
Most definitely. I think as a regulators, our number one challenge at the moment is how do we strike the balance of promoting innovation and at the same time ensure that consumers are protected from the risks that are actually emanating from those innovations. And personally speaking, with the establishment of the Innovation Hub, I think it put us in a position whereby we are able, through the sandbox, for example, we are able to test some of these innovations, identify the risks that comes out of those innovations, and by the time we license them, we are licensed them from an informed perspective where we know if we license you, these are the risks that we expect, and this is how we're going to deal with them. But you are quite right. It's quite a delicate task to try and balance these two things.
Okay, so there are a lot of people here who are trying to attract business. There are a lot of people here who are telling everybody how they are licensed, they are complying with whatever regulation there is. What benefits do you offer those people, and how are the FSCA looking at stopping those Instagram guys? The ones who are telling you that they are traders, they take your money, you never hear from them again. What can we do about both sides of this?
Sure. What I can say is some of the benefits that we offer, I'll start with the benefits. Some of the benefits that we offer as a regulator is that once you come to us, for example, if you come to us through the Innovation Hub, let's say, for example, you've got a product or you are a startup, you offer solutions that border around payments, that border around lending, that borders around, let's say, deposit taking. For you, under normal circumstances, to be able to get a license for this, you have to visit all these three institutions, the FSCA, the Reserve Bank, and NCR. But now, with the establishment of the Innovation Hub, you are able to come to us and we are able to give you a comprehensive advice that will actually, in a way, it will save you time.
Are we cutting down on red tape?
We are cutting down on red tape. That's what we are doing.
Okay.
And then secondly, once you do that and then you are licensed, the fact that you are licensed, it means people will be able to trust what you are offering. And once people trust what you are offering, that's actually good for our financial system. It means they will be protected. On the rogue guys, they will always be there, unfortunate.
Yeah.
And hence, as a FSCA, you might have seen we've published a report not long time ago actually detailing some of the cases that we've dealt with and the actions that we've taken with regard to the raw guys. So with the raw guys, fortunately, as the regulators, we are biting a lot. We are actually dealing with them. A lot of them are being closed on the regular basis. So we are actually taking a serious action, and our actions are bearing fruit.
Are we putting people in jail? Are we fining them? Are we shutting down their businesses? Like, what are we doing?
There are fines that are being imposed, and some of these businesses are also being shut down.
All right, very good. So, one of the other things, and we'll come to your questions, I've got another 10 minutes, so we'll devote half of this to your questions. I just want to quickly get one more thing off of my chest. This is about the future of fintech in South Africa and regulations around fintech. How do you see things developing? What sort of resources do you have? And how well equipped are you to deal with what the future may bring in terms of fintech? You guys are obviously watching the horizon.
Yes, definitely. The fact that regulators, I'm from a regulatory institution, so within the regulatory organization, we establish what we call a Fintech Department with the sole aim of scanning the financial environment for changes and developments that are happening, so that we inform the regulator of what's happening, and so that when they draft policies and regulations, they are actually informed by the developments that are happening in the market. So the future actually looks good, because you've got regulators now who are out there speaking with fintechs, hearing fintech voices, and go back to their offices and draft regulations and policies that are actually informed by what is actually happening in the space. So gone are the days where, as regulators, you'll just see us drafting regulation and policies while we are sitting in the offices and we don't know much about what's happening in the spaces. So we are leaving our seats.
Or letting the politicians figure it out 10 years later.
Exactly.
All right, thank you very much. Awelani, we're going to go to a couple of questions here. Yes, sir. You're going to have to come up and grab one of these microphones. Thank you.
One of the things that I'm Daniel Keeble. One of the things that we, that as a brokerage here, we face is the issue you spoke about. It's the kind of the fraud, the rogue guys.
Okay.
The rogue guys. Sorry, can you hear me better now? Okay, the fraud and the rogue guys. One of the real issues. I'm for a company called Ubuntu Invest, and there is another company called Ubuntu Investment who claims to be us. And they use our pictures, and they use the picture of our CEO and owner, Nelisi Masango, and we know who they are. Our problem, and my question is, how do we work with the FSCA? And I think your hands are somewhat tied as well, because the police or whoever it is who know who these people are, they're not really working. In other words, they're not trying to shut down who these people are. How do you, as the FSCA, work in a situation where it's very difficult for you, because you guys as well, you know who's doing the fraud, but there's another arm which is either the police or another organization which maybe isn't bringing the guys to heel. So is there? How do we deal with this? That's the question.
Yeah, it's quite a tough one, mostly because within an FSCA, you've got a department that is called enforcement. They actually deal specifically with the issues that you are raising. And if you can look, a week ago, they issued what you call I think it's a report that showed some of the cases they've managed to successfully deal with. And yeah, it's quite a lot of them. What I can advise you is, I think they've got a very open door channel that is there, whereby you can issue a complaint and they will be on top of it. From my experience and from what I've seen being reported on the media on a regular basis, they're actually very capacitated and a very strong team. And also looking at the stats that are out based on the report that was published a week ago, I'm certain that cases like yours is one of those that they are on top of their list. And if you reported it directly to them, they will actually get on top of it.
Right, any other questions? Yes, come up to yeah, there we go. Got a microphone. Cool.
Afternoon. I don't know if it's morning. I would like to inquire about STPs. I want to know, why do brokers have book Bs? And what is the purpose of a book B? And also, what is the FSCA doing about it?
Yeah. Another question that actually fall within another department that is within FSA. This fall within the licensing department. So what I can do with you, I don't know if we can exchange details, and then I can keep you in touch with the licensing department, and they'll be able to assist when it comes to that.
Okay.
Yes, because this is purely something that falls within the licensing department, and they deal with that on a regular basis.
All right, so I know that some of the questions we aren't going to be able to answer straight away, but if you want to put them up here anyway, we've got 1 or 2 minutes left for questions, and then I'm going to wrap up. Anybody else with anything you want to throw at Awelani? 5, 4, 3, there we go. Right. Grab the mic, there it comes.
Thank you. This is from a brokerage standpoint as well. Just looking at the FSCA within Africa, as we are at an African summit.
Just pull the mic a little closer.
Sorry. Yeah. As we are at an African summit, could you speak towards the reach of the FSCA within the continent itself? Because as a brokerage, we can look to regulate ourselves in Kenya or in South Africa to gain validity within the continent. So I wanted to ask about the reach that you have.
The reach within the continent.
Yeah, within the rest of the continent, the kind of relationships you have with the other regulators and how we could facilitate making that a bit easier.
No, most definitely. We do have very good relationship with other regulators within the continent. They are what I can call international bodies that as a FSCA we are member of. And we sit on those bodies where we sit with other sister regulators within the continent and globally, whereby within those sittings, we do exchange information. And also we do some sort of way of doing things where we have a memorandum and understanding where we work together. But as far as our reach, we are mostly regulating institutions that are operating in South Africa. We might probably, as a way of our understanding with another regulator within another country, just reach out to them to understand more about you, what you do, what you are all about, just to do our due diligence. If, for example, you are based in Mauritius, you want to open a branch in South Africa, we might reach to the fellow Mauritian regulator just to understand more about you, what you do, whether you are in good standing, and all of that. But most definitely, we do have relationships.
It's almost like an Interpol approach.
Yes.
All right, just one final thing that I think is quite interesting here. Jurisdiction, obviously, in South Africa plays a big part. You guys are only empowered to take action in this jurisdiction. But many of the people who are online and are breaking the rules, the people who you're seeking to go after, quite rightly, are people who don't necessarily have jurisdiction here. They might be international. How do we deal with that?
Quite interesting, because I think this is one of the risks that you normally identify, especially when you deal with platforms. So one of the way of trying to deal with these issues that has to do with cross-border is the fact that if you are, for example, want to operate here, you will need to be licensed here. If you are causing trouble, but you are offshore, but you've got a license to operate here, meaning that will cancel your license of operating here, then automatically then it means you will cease operating in South Africa. So in terms of you, how will we deal with you since you're another country? Yeah, that's something that is quite tough.
Well, I think there are lots of other questions that remain. We don't have any time left for this morning, but Awelani, if people want to get hold of the FSCA, if they want to come and talk to you, if they want to get themselves licensed, or if they want to find out what the conditions are that would make things a little bit easier for them in order to get through the red tape, or perhaps they have an argument with you, where can they get hold of you?
The first point where they can contact us is through the IFWG. We've got what you call an intergovernmental fintech work group. We are available in www.ifwg.co.za. So that's where you can find our details. If you've got a startup, you want to navigate the regulatory landscape, you want to know what are the regulations that you need to comply with, you are not sure, you are more than welcome to send a query there. You can even set up a meeting with us, take us through your business, and then we will be able to provide advice. You want to participate in the sandbox, you feel like what you have, it will be good for South African environment, you are more than welcome to go to the IFWG, set up there's a box there where you can send your inquiry, set up an appointment with us. We'll be more than welcome to assist you to navigate this very complex and ever-changing and growing space.
Well, thank you very much. Awelani Rahulani, it's very nice to see you, and thank you for making yourself available to answer these questions. I'm sure that many of you are also heartened by the fact that there is someone here who is willing to answer questions and willing to engage with you. So often, the regulators don't make themselves that available. So it's good to see you, and I appreciate you coming to talk to us. And ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your time this morning. If there's anything else, I suggest you get hold of the FSCA directly and continue to meet people around here today, many of whom will be able to enlighten you as to the various topics we haven't had the time to cover this morning. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you.